Okay, so now VS Code is completely set up on our machine, right? And we already had set up Protractor. So now we will see how we can create a new project here with sample Protractor scripts, and then how we can execute it in this IDE, which is VS Code. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project. For that, I will create a new local folder here with the name Protractor demo. Okay, and then I'm going to open this folder here in our ID, right? So it will be kind of project for us. So click on open folder, go to that location where you created it, and then select that project, okay, or folder. So this will now create a kind of a folder. It is currently empty, right? So this is our project come folder. We can create new files and folders inside this, okay? What I'm going to do, so when we installed Protractor, right, on our system, uh, it also provides you with some examples, okay? So it will be present in your um, Protractor installation folder. For me, if you're working on Windows, it will be in the C users, your username, then AppData Roaming, NPM, node modules, Protractor, and under example, you will find two files, right? One is conf.js, which is configuration.js, and then one example underscore spec.js, right? So these are the two files which we require in order to run Protractor. Okay, so this is one example which is kind of provided by a Protractor when you install it on your machine. So I'll just do a copy and paste it in the folder I created, right, on my local. So I'm going to paste those two files here, okay? And obviously those are going to appear in our folder, right? There's two JavaScript files, and so these are the two files, right? So I'm going to going to explain it a little bit here. What are these two files, right? So conf.js is the main configuration file which gets executed, right? So it contains the capabilities like which driver you are going to use, then the framework which you are going to use. So as I mentioned earlier, Jasmine is the default framework for Protractor, right? And then it will have the specs file, right? So here you can mention the spec file. And for this, it is example underscore spec.js. You can have any number of spec files. You can also create a folder and keep all your specs files inside this. In order to execute that, you need to call it here, the specs file, right? And this is the default timeout interval. So this is the whole configuration file, JavaScript configuration file for your Protractor. And then this is the kind of test case, right? Written in Jasmine framework, right? It's a BDD framework, and there are this describe like the first part is it should greet the named user, right? So it should go to this page angularjs.org, and then it will take this element by model, right? Your name dot send keys, and it will enter this value here, and then it will store it in the greeting, that element, and then it will kind of expect, or this is an assertion that it's the name or the value is hello and whatever text we entered, right? So this is a kind of scenario for you. Okay, then this is the next scenario, like describe to-do list and function, right? Again, we are using a before each function here. So before each function, it will execute these two lines, right? It will go to the browser, it will open this website, and then it will store this to-do list here, right? So we are using the by.repeater here to get all the elements which has the name or value this, right? So it will return all the elements and store it in to-do list, which is a variable. Okay. And then there are these two scenarios, like two assertions here. To-do list equals to, and to-do list, the value is equals to this. Similarly, this is again add to do and add button, and then we are sending some value here and then clicking on the button. Okay, and this is assertion. So this is kind of some scenarios, kind of three scenarios which are written in your Jasmine framework, right? And this is the language which uses Jasmine uses. Yeah, it's quite understandable, right? So it describes the scenario, and then it tells what it is doing, and inside that it will have the code which will run. Okay, so that's a kind of overview of how your spec.js will look like. Okay, now so we have now both conf.js and example underscore spec.js. So I'm going to head to our terminal, right? So I'm from where we can actually execute this Protractor code or scripts, right? So this is our folder. You need to go to that folder. Okay, before we do an execution, right? If as Jasmine is the default framework, we also need to make sure that Jasmine is installed on our machine as well, right? So you can install Jasmine. You can go to this page, setup node.js.html, right? You can install it in two ways. You can either using npm, you can install it locally, or you can install it globally. Okay, so I would prefer to install it globally. So let me go to my command prompt, and quickly we will execute this command just to make sure that Jasmine is also installed, and it will kind of identify our BDD language, which scripts which we have written in Jasmine. Okay, so this is the command, and go ahead and execute it. So that will install Jasmine for you. Okay, and once that's installed, then we can go to Protect or VS Code terminal, and we can execute this configuration using the Protractor command, which is Protractor, and then the conf.js, right? So that will execute all your scenarios. Okay, so Jasmine is installed, the 3.6.1 version. So let's go ahead here to the terminal, and here I will type Protractor and then conf.js. Okay, and that will now start the conf.js JavaScript file, right? Which will then start this Chrome driver, and it will launch that particular web page, and it will execute the scenarios, and it will tell you whether it has passed or failed. Okay, so it's going to angularjs.org, and it is going to perform the scenarios which you have mentioned in the spec.js file. It will complete all the scenarios, and then it will close the browser, right? So if you see here, right, DevTools listening on this port, right? So this is our WebDriver or Chrome driver port. It has started the driver, and then it has executed. So these three dots represent that there were three scenarios which have passed, right? 3 specs and 0 failures. So it ran successfully, right? So this is kind of very simple sample Protractor scripts which I ran, which comes along with your Protractor installation. So you can very easily go and change few things here just to test that your spec or your Protractor configuration is working fine, right? So in the coming videos, we will see how we can write our own scripts, write own spec.js, and we'll kind of work on a real-time project.